Something broke in Cleveland, and it wasn't just the offensive line. For weeks, Quinshon Judkins and Shadur have been battered, blamed, and buried beneath a crumbling system. A system that rewards mediocrity, blames the victims, and keeps repeating the same mistakes like it's part of the playbook. And while the hits keep coming, head coach Stefanski just watches. No urgency, no direction, just a slow-motion collapse with two future stars stuck in the middle. Judkins called it out not with anger but precision. And Sanders, he didn't have to say a word. You can see everything in his stride, his stare, and the bruises he's not supposed to talk about. The Browns aren't losing games, they're wasting careers. And if something doesn't change fast, this franchise won't just lose a season. It'll lose the only thing that could have saved it. Judkins and Sanders aren't the problem. They're the proof. The dysfunction doesn't start when the ball is snapped, it starts long before. In the meeting rooms, in the weight room, in the playbook that's been photocopied week after week with no real fix. It's not a breakdown anymore, it's their identity. Watch the tape, any tape. Against the Bears, the Steelers, the Dolphins, it doesn't matter. You'll see it unravel in real time. A missed assignment here, a blown protection there, and before you can even register what went wrong, Judkins is getting swallowed in the backfield and Sanders is scraping himself off the turf again. These aren't isolated mistakes, they're patterns. And patterns this ugly don't happen unless the rot is deep. This offensive line isn't just underperforming, they've become a liability. A constant, unshakable weak point in an offense that's desperate for rhythm. You can't build anything when the floorboards are giving out under your feet every Sunday. Shadur doesn't have a chance to scan a defense because he's dodging pressure the moment he stands up straight. He's not developing, he's surviving. And no one inside that building seems ready to admit how dangerous that is. Judkins knows it. That's why his words hit different. He didn't throw teammates under the bus, didn't call out names. He didn't have to. He simply told the truth that what's happening up front is sabotaging the entire operation. There's no scheme that works without time. No running back succeeds if he's fighting off contact behind the line of scrimmage. And no quarterback grows if he's spending every down in survival mode. It's become so routine that the shock has worn off. Fans don't even flinch anymore when Sanders eats grass 2 seconds after the snap. They're numb to it. That's the most damning part, the expectation of collapse. You watch a play unfold, and the surprise is that the pocket breaks, but that it sometimes holds. That's when you know the damage is deeper than stats can capture. This is an offense built on hypotheticals. If the line holds, if Judkins gets a crease, if Sanders gets time, but the ifs are killing them, they're fantasy. What's real is the busted timing, the broken protection calls, and the look on every player's face when another drive dies before it begins. Sanders has mobility, vision, awareness, everything a coach should want in a modern quarterback, but even his instincts are getting warped by the chaos around him. He flinches before protection breaks because it always does. That's not ghost pressure, that's conditioning. Stefanski had chances to fix this. Early on, when the script still looked salvageable, when rotations could have been reset and play schemes adjusted, but nothing real changed. Swapping out one lineman for another does nothing if the system around them remains broken. The protection calls are stale, the execution is flat, and the message to the locker room is deafening: mediocrity might not cost you your job. It's hard to hold players accountable when leadership refuses to hold itself accountable first. And now it's too late to pretend this is just a rough patch. Players like Judkins and Sanders know what greatness should feel like. They've felt it even in glimpses. A clean block on the edge, a play where the timing clicks, and you see what this offense could be. But the flashes are fewer. The hope? It's hanging by threads. And still, no real sense of urgency. The press conference soundbites haven't evolved. We need to be better up front. That phrase has been worn into the ground. No urgency, no conviction, just vague, recycled filler while the tape screams louder and louder that this foundation wasn't cracked, it was never solid to begin with. And that's what makes this all feel so reckless. Not just the lack of wins, but the acceptance of dysfunction as normal. When breakdowns happen this often, they stop being isolated. They become culture. And that culture is bleeding into everything. You see it in body language, in the timing of each snap, in the panic throws and desperate checkdowns. You can see it in Judkins' running style, more dodging, less reading, more improvising, less cutting with confidence. It's not that they're playing badly. It's that they're playing with the weight of a broken operation on their shoulders, and that's not what development looks like. Sanders should be in rhythm by now. He should be reading his third option, stretching the field, putting up efficient drives. Instead, he's in a mental loop of survival. Snap, panic, scramble, reset, do it again. And Judkins is doing calculus in the backfield, predicting where the chaos will hit first before he even grabs the ball. And the worst part? The coaching staff keeps feeding them to the wolves. Like this can get fixed by watching more tape or speaking in vague platitudes in front of the media. Development doesn't happen in chaos. Trust doesn't survive without protection. And these young stars are learning all the wrong lessons about what this league is supposed to feel like. The longer this continues, the more this dysfunction hardens. Bad habits become defaults. Poor timing becomes muscle memory. And eventually, talent stops trying to shine through the cracks. It just slips away quietly. It's not about blame anymore. It's about the damage being done in real time while the people in charge keep acting like it's no big deal. This isn't just an offensive line problem. It's a franchise problem. And it's now crystal clear. The Browns aren't just failing to protect their quarterback. They're failing to protect the future of the franchise. You can see it in his eyes. You don't even need the stats. Watch the sideline during a timeout. Shedeur Sanders, helmet off, staring into the field like he's trying to read a defense that's already blown up the play 2 seconds ago. It's more than frustration, it's fatigue. Not just physical, but mental, emotional. The kind that doesn't show up in post-game interviews, but lingers during film sessions, rehab, and quiet moments when the cameras are off. There's no quarterback in the league, rookie or veteran, who can look composed behind a collapsing wall. But with Sanders, it's not just the chaos. It's the fact that he's expected to make magic from nothing and still shoulder the blame when the play dies at his feet. That's what's changing him. That's what's making that once fiery sideline presence look quieter with each game. Not checked out, not defeated, but strained and completely alone. Sanders came in with confidence. Swagger. That classic mix of precision and flair that made people pay attention even before he took a snap at this level. But swagger only lives when there's trust. And right now, trust is gone. He doesn't trust the pocket, doesn't trust the call, doesn't trust the process that's supposed to protect him. And you can feel that second-guessing creep in with every passing quarter. There are plays where he doesn't even finish his drop before pressure hits. Others where he starts bailing out before the pocket technically collapses because it always collapses. That's not fear, that's muscle memory. That's self-preservation. Quarterbacks are taught to stand tall and read through progressions. Sanders, he's reading survival paths, and the crazy part is he still delivers. Under constant pressure, he's thrown dimes off platform on the run with 2 defenders breathing down his neck. And they're not lucky shots. These are precise, calculated throws. The kind that remind everyone watching just how talented this kid is. Anyone with eyes can see the capability. The question now is, how long will he be expected to carry the team on broken legs before that talent starts fading? Because make no mistake, damage doesn't always show up immediately. Sometimes it's subtle. You don't lose the game on one hit. You lose the season when your QB slowly starts believing that every play is doomed, that every snap comes with pain, that no one's coming to help. That's what we're watching happen in real time. There's a name for it. Quarterback trauma. You flinch faster, move quicker, bail early. Miss open reads not because you didn't see them, but because you didn't think you'd have the time to throw. It rewires players. It changes how they think. Some recover, others don't. And right now, Sanders is walking the thinnest of wires, performing at a high level with the weight of an imploding offense on his back. He's not broken, but he's being chipped away, one busted play at a time. Every long pause in a post-game interview, every clipped answer, every press conference where he says, "We just need to execute better," when the real answer is, "They're not giving me a chance." He's playing the diplomatic role, handling the media professionally. But look closer and you'll see the strain. The pauses before the answers, the slight change in how he phrases things. He's trying to carry failing leadership without throwing them under the bus. That shouldn't be his job. His job should be to lead on the field, to build chemistry, learn the playbook, evolve within the system, not survive it. Every drive that starts with hope and ends with him peeling himself off the ground pushes him further from the developmental path he should be on and deeper into damage control. Sanders has barely had a chance to show what he's truly capable of, not because he lacks ability, but because the environment is toxic. A good system brings out the best in players. This one is hiding him, burying him behind broken protections, busted reads, and terrible habits being formed for survival. Left unchecked, this kind of dysfunction doesn't just ruin plays, it ruins careers. And here's the part no one talks about: it's contagious. Once a quarterback begins adjusting to fear, routines change. Reads shorten. Throws become quicker but less calculated. Sanders has shown he can adapt, but why should he have to? His instincts are elite. You don't teach what he does on the move, but instincts won't save him forever. Not when every time he stands in the pocket feels like standing in traffic. Stefanski and his staff keep talking about letting the offense develop, but development requires a foundation. And right now, Sanders is standing on ash. And yet, he keeps showing up, keeps playing smart, keeps delivering flashes that scream franchise quarterback hiding inside a malfunctioning machine. The rare throws where the line holds, the calm rollout under pressure, the laser to the sideline when every other option crumbles. They shine because we know what he could be, and because it makes what's happening around him that much more frustrating. This isn't just poor execution. This is an organizational failure. And instead of adapting around Sanders, they're leaving him to adapt around disaster. That's backwards. Sanders isn't the one who needs to adjust. The system around him is what's broken. He's being asked to trust a process that actively fails him. And when quarterbacks lose trust in schemes, coaches, or protection, they start shutting off. That light, the one you see after a touchdown, after a game-winning drive, that light dims. The body language changes. The excitement is replaced by tension. Wrong reads, rushed mechanics, throws he would have made months ago, suddenly short. And if that's what happens to a player like Shadur Sanders, what hope does anyone else have? Because quarterbacks aren't plug-and-play athletes. They're emotional engines. If you burn that engine too early, it doesn't start again. The signs are all here. The slow shifts in post-game tone, the winced reactions after hits that used to roll off, the silence on the bench, sitting alone, not checked out processing, always processing, because he's not just playing football anymore. He's managing trauma, navigating dysfunction, carrying a team that's forgotten how to protect him. And if Stefanski doesn't change that, if something doesn't give soon, then the franchise will have wasted the one thing you can't buy or replace. A quarterback with the talent to build a dynasty and the patience to watch it collapse around him in silence. You know what makes this whole collapse feel worse? Quinshon Judkins hasn't said much. He doesn't go viral for screaming at teammates or blowing up on the sideline. He doesn't throw helmets or fire off cryptic social media posts. He just runs, hard. Relentless, every single down. He shows up like the game plan isn't crumbling all around him. And still, somehow, it always is. Watch Judkins when he gets the ball. There's no blocking blueprint, no safety net, just chaos, and he's navigating it like a man trying to outrun an avalanche. Sometimes he breaks through the first layer, sometimes he doesn't. But the effort is always there. He doesn't wait to be rescued. He knows no rescue-s coming. And that's what makes it feel like sabotage. This is a running back with real burst, vision, cutback instincts that flash NFL-ready on film. You get him into space, he'll make defenders look foolish, and he has, on rare occasions when the offensive line gives him more than half a second to process. But most of the time, he's being met by defenders before he even hits the line of scrimmage. Contact before momentum. Recovery instead of execution. That's not football. That's firefighting. He's being used like a band-aid on a bullet wound, thrown into busted plays like maybe this time his talent will cover up the disaster unfolding in front of him. And sometimes it does. But that's not a system, that's a lottery ticket. And relying on miracle runs every drive isn't just bad coaching. It's misuse of elite talent. Judkins didn't come here to get 4 defenders in his face before the handoff fully lands. But he's not begging for help. He's not whining in interviews. He's just giving everything he has, one broken play at a time. There's a different kind of leadership in that, not loud, not flashy, just surgical consistency. And it's the kind of leadership this team is wasting. This isn't a player struggling to adjust to the pros. This is a player being thrown into a situation where even his best efforts can't shift the outcome. And that does something to a person. You can see it in his face after another short gain that should have been 20 yards. He doesn't celebrate those miracle plays anymore, not with joy, only with relief. Like he escaped something, not accomplished it. It should never feel that way. Judkins wasn't built to be a placeholder while the coaching staff figures out what's wrong. He's the kind of player you build around, not throw into the fire. And yet, every game, the same story plays out. A few flashes of brilliance buried beneath a dozen busted plays. He might have one of the fastest cuts in the backfield today, but it goes ignored, trapped under a wall of defenders the moment the play begins. And still, he pushes forward. That's what makes this entire disaster so deeply frustrating. These 2 young stars haven't quit. Not once. You see Judkins lower his shoulder into defenders who shouldn't even be in the gap yet. You see him spin out of contact, bounce runs to the outside, stretch 5-yard plays out of blown assignments. Every snap, he's bringing energy the system refuses to return. That kind of effort, it's rare. And it's dangerous, not because Judkins can't handle it, but because no one can handle it alone for long. If these habits harden, always expecting contact early, assuming blocks will fail, bouncing outside on designed gap runs, they'll stick. And eventually, explosiveness turns into hesitation. That's what dysfunction does. It turns elite runners into survivors, not because they forget how to move, but because they learn not to trust the play call. Fans watching see the stats. Maybe Judkins ends the game with decent yardage, a long run tucked in somewhere, a couple nice gains. But what they don't see is the invisible wall he's running into, the missed block that forced the cutback, the wrong read from the line that collapsed the entire left edge. He's fighting the play design and the defense. And the fact that he's still gaining anything is a miracle. Every touchdown feels stolen. Every first down, a jailbreak. That's how hard he's working to make anything happen. And the coaches, Stefanski keeps saying the right words, "We believe in Judkins." He's doing everything we ask of him. But that's exactly the problem. This staff is asking everything and giving nothing in return. No consistent blocking, no rhythm, no in-game adjustments to help him find momentum. When Judkins finds a lane, it's not because the design was perfect. It's because he made it perfect. Vision, acceleration, patience, those traits are baked into his game. He didn't come into this league to just hold over the offense while leadership decides whether to act or delay. He came to be a cornerstone, a weapon, a difference maker. Instead, he's digging his way out of the rubble while everyone else pretends the collapse isn't happening. And what happens when that effort gets taken for granted too long? Players get tired, not physically, mentally. They start questioning why they're giving 100% to a system that gives them 30% support back. They trust less. They speak less. They begin to drift emotionally, mentally, and eventually physically. Right now, Judkins is holding it together better than anyone should be expected to. But how long can that last? The margin between dedication and disillusionment is razor thin when you're grinding through brick walls just to keep a drive alive. And if something doesn't change, if the coaches don't stop pretending he's fine because he won't complain, then the Browns won't just lose him to injury or another team. They'll lose him to resentment. You don't feel it all at once. It's slow. It starts when the burst isn't as quick, the fight through contact a little less fierce. When your body's still going forward but your heart's already somewhere else. And if the Browns don't act soon, that's where this is headed. Because you can have gold in your hands, but if you keep throwing it into a broken engine, don't be surprised when it burns out before it ever shines. Kevin Stefanski isn't calling plays anymore, he's calling bluffs. And every week, the league stops buying it. For all the talk of adjustments, all the repetitive post-game promises about looking at the tape, nothing actually changes, nothing meaningful. The protections still collapse. The same 5 linemen miss the same stunts. Shadur still hits the ground on cue, and Quinshon Judkins still runs headfirst into traffic with no path forward. The system isn't evolving, it's decaying. And the man at the center of it, the one with the power to fix it, keeps choosing patience over urgency. That's not leadership, that's negligence. You can't fix rot by rearranging furniture. You have to tear it down. But Stefanski acts like all this can be patched. Like rotating a guard or tweaking a blocking scheme will suddenly erase weeks of dysfunction. These aren't minor course corrections. They're cosmetic surgeries on a broken skeleton. Stefanski isn't fixing the offense. He's decorating the disaster. Week after week, the excuses go on loop. We need to execute better. We need to coach it better. But where's the proof? Execution only improves when players are put in a position to succeed. Coaching only gets better when it stops repeating the same broken philosophy. Right now, this coaching staff looks less like strategists and more like spectators, watching the fire burn while whispering about smoke. And let's be brutally honest, this is no longer about technique or matchups. This is about identity. And the Browns' identity right now is clear, soft, predictable, mentally unprepared. A team that reacts to disaster instead of preventing it. A franchise that's more comfortable saying, "We'll get there eventually," than asking why they aren't there already. When a coach talks about patience while his quarterback gets hit on every third dropback and his star running back is dodging defenders 2 steps after the handoff, it stops sounding like strategy. It starts sounding like surrender. and this staff. They surrendered a long time ago to flawed schemes, to indecision, to the illusion that time alone would fix what only courage and confrontation can. What's worse is that it's happening in plain sight. You don't need advanced analytics to see it. Just watch the line pre-snap. Watch how confused they look. Watch how easily defenders loop through gaps untouched. Watch how the game plan unravels before it even begins. And listen. Not to the coach, but to the silence in between his answers, the pauses, the recycled phrases, the lifeless tone of a man who sounds like he's already waiting for the offseason. And that attitude infects everything. The line knows there's no accountability. You can see it in the effort or lack of it. Missed assignments that cost drives but cost no jobs. In any locker room, culture is a reflection of expectation. When failure goes unpunished, it becomes routine. When losing doesn't sting, it spreads. And Stefanski has quietly nurtured that exact environment, safe for underperformance, dangerous for talent. The worst part? He had warning signs. The breakdowns started weeks ago, not last Sunday. Each bad snap, each protection error, each panic throw from Sanders, it was a flare in the sky. This isn't working. But instead of scrapping and rebuilding, Stefanski doubled down on execution. Execution? You can't execute a broken design. You don't win with effort if the structure is flawed. At some point, it doesn't matter how much film you study or how committed your players are, if the foundation is unstable, it will collapse. And now the collapse is here. Judkins' carries are wasted more often than they're useful. Sanders can't build rhythm because his launch window closes before receivers are even out of their breaks. And the defense. They're burning out from time spent on the field, compensating for an offense that can't hold possession longer than a highlight reel. This isn't just football. It's dysfunction, and it's bleeding into the locker room. You want to talk trust? Trust dies when results don't match words. Stefanski keeps talking about belief in his players, belief in the staff, belief in the process. But how can you preach belief when your actions scream hesitation? When every week the same players get the same reps, the same missed blocks are excused with the same tired lines, and the talent that should be elevated is being psychologically grinded down into silence? And that silence matters. Because Judkins and Sanders are pros, but they're also people. They're holding back their frustration out of respect, but you can sense it simmering just under the surface. A few more weeks of this, they won't say it, but their play will. Their effort will dip. Their decision-making will shift, not out of laziness, but out of self-preservation. If leadership won't protect its players, the players will start protecting themselves. And that's when the fracture becomes permanent. The failure here goes deeper than game plans. It's emotional, it's cultural. You have two rising stars in the building, both showing effort, poise, discipline, and instead of building the offense around them with urgency, the staff has built excuses and hid behind pressers. It's malpractice disguised as maturity. Look across the league. Teams make bold changes all the time. We've seen offensive line coaches get fired midseason. We've seen scheme overhauls happen overnight. But in Cleveland, change is treated like radiation, avoided at all costs, even while everything rots from the inside. Stefanski talks like patience is a strength. It's not anymore. It's a disguise, a shield. And every week he doesn't act, that shield chips away until all that's left is a head coach quietly watching his franchise crumble while pretending the bricks aren't falling. This isn't discipline. It's delusion. Players like Judkins and Sanders don't stick around forever. And if the Browns allow this mess to continue, with no sacrifice, no overhaul, no clear message that mediocrity won't be tolerated, then don't act surprised when the stars start tuning out. Because sooner or later, all that effort gets tired. And when it does, the franchise won't be stuck in purgatory. It'll be buried in it. By now, the film isn't just showing poor execution, it's revealing a team that stopped believing. Not in effort, not in each other, but in the system. It started with a few breakdowns. Then came the excuses. Then came the silence. And now it's something worse, normalization. The Browns aren't reacting to failure anymore, they're adjusting to it. That's what cultural rot looks like in real time. It doesn't arrive with a bang. It creeps in quietly, bit by bit, until nobody fights it off anymore. You see it in the smallest moments, when the linemen walk back to the huddle without urgency after another busted block. When receivers look behind them mid-route, expecting the play to be dead already. When Sanders gets hit, and not a single teammate gets in the defender's face. These things matter. Because they don't just expose missed assignments. They expose a locker room that's losing intensity and losing trust. Trust isn't a coaching speech. It isn't earned in team meetings. It lives in the reps, in the protections that hold, in the belief that the guy next to you won't leave you hanging. And that belief, it's evaporating faster than anyone wants to admit. Players like Judkins and Sanders are still giving everything, but how long can they do that when the environment tells them it won't matter? When every hero run from Judkins is followed by another blown block, or when every completion Sanders makes after escaping pressure gets wiped out by a holding call or a stalled drive, the Browns have talent. That's not the issue. They've got weapons other franchises would kill for, real stars. But stars aren't immune to dysfunction. And when a culture turns toxic, even great players get infected. Not by quitting, but by retraining themselves to play with less trust, less freedom, and less joy. Take Judkins. Watch his running style over the last few weeks. You'll notice a shift. Earlier in the season, his footwork was fluid, patient, reactive. Now it's preemptive, hurried. He's skipping reads, cutting too early, bouncing wide when he doesn't have to, not out of panic, but out of pattern recognition. He's already seen where the block is going to fail. He knows which lineman is going to get pushed back. So instead of following the play, he's dodging the damage before it happens. That's not a style issue. It's not a phase, that's a defense mechanism. And it's the same with Sanders. His internal clock is speeding up, not because it helps the offense, but because it protects him. Watch the shoulder hitches before he throws, the subtle lean toward the edge. He's already expecting the wall to collapse, so his base is always halfway into the escape plan. That kind of trauma doesn't show on the stat sheet. It shows in the quarter-second delay between an open read and a thrown ball. And sometimes that's all it takes to lose a game. If this was just about losing, it'd be easier to fix. Losing is a surface symptom. Culture, that's the bloodstream. And this team's culture is bleeding out. The worst part? The players know it. They might not say it on mic, but their faces don't lie. Judkins walking back to the sideline, staring at the turf. Sanders sitting alone between drives, helmet off, staring into nowhere like he's trying to figure out how much longer he can keep doing this. That's not normal. That's a team in emotional retreat. This isn't just poor coaching. It's passive corrosion, leadership letting failure grow roots. Look at the way the defense plays late in games now, overextended, sluggish. Not because they've checked out, but because they've already played too many minutes thanks to an offense that can't stay on the field. And they know it'll happen again next drive, and the one after that. It's the kind of exhaustion that turns resentment inward. Even the body language during warm-ups has changed. The tunnel walks that used to be focused now look like formality. Guys are going through the motions. That quiet excitement gone. You don't have to be an expert to feel it. Even the broadcasts feel heavier. The commentary keeps circling back to the same phrases: needs better protection, needs to clean things up, lack of cohesion. They're dancing around what everyone already knows. This is a burnout team. The gaslight loop never stops leadership repeating the same empty phrases while the players absorb the hits. The more the coaching staff refuses to acknowledge how broken this machine is, the louder the silence from the locker room gets. Culture doesn't break overnight. It's 1,000 little fractures. When failure isn't punished, effort stops being celebrated. When dysfunction keeps its job, talent stops trusting the plan. And when survival becomes the only objective, winning becomes impossible. No matter what Stefanski says in the media, the players aren't listening anymore. Maybe they nod. Maybe they repeat the talking points. But when you stare at a quarterback who's taken 10 sacks in 2 games, when your star running back's average gap is a wall of bodies, there's not much left to believe in. The playbook could be fire. The talent could be gold. But if the coaching around it stays weak, predictable, and stubborn, all that potential will do what it's doing now, flicker in between injury breaks and slow-motion implosions. That's how careers get wasted. Look around the league. So many teams with talent. Not all of them succeed. Why? Culture, urgency, accountability. The Browns have none of the above. And until they rebuild those things, it doesn't matter how many stars they draft or highlight plays they post. The system will eat them alive. And the sad part? That rebuild could have already started. It could have started weeks ago, back when Judkins first went public, when Sanders first started flinching at ghosts. But instead, Stefanski blinked. He softened. He waited. And now that wait is starting to feel like the real collapse. A talented offense is burning from the inside. And if leadership keeps polishing the surface while ignoring the fire beneath, it won't just be a bad season. It'll be a warning flare for every young player watching. Every franchise has a window. That stretch of time where your talent aligns, your contracts make sense, and the spark you've been chasing actually feels within reach. Most teams push hard to protect it, or blow everything up when they realize it's closing. The Browns, they're sleepwalking through theirs like they don't even realize it exists. Shedeur Sanders and Quinshon Judkins are the window. Right now, today, not in 2 years. Not after one more rebuild cycle. This is it, and the clock has already started ticking. You don't get many players like this at the same time, a quarterback with elite instincts and natural composure, paired with a running back who can shift momentum in a single snap. That's not just rare, that's a foundation. A future. But instead of building around it, this coaching staff is actively testing their limits. Not in tough love, growth through grit kind of way, in the worst way. The kind that threatens to burn out your brightest stars before they even get a chance to burn long. There's no excuse for that. No, it's early in their career's justification. That kind of timeline doesn't exist anymore in the modern NFL. Players don't wait. They don't sit around praying the organization eventually figures it out. They either grow or they leave. And the Browns? They're edging toward the wrong side of that equation, with each hit Sanders takes, with every busted run Judkins is forced to salvage, with every week that goes by without a real, visible shift in coaching approach. What's happening in Cleveland isn't development. It's damage. And the longer it goes unaddressed, the more permanent it becomes. When a young quarterback gets conditioned to distrust the pocket, to bail early on designs, or to second-guess whether basic protections will hold, those habits don't just go away. You don't coach that out after it settles in. It becomes programming. And you can't just reset a player's mental wiring once it's been hard-coded into survival mode week after week. The same goes for Judkins. A running back's prime doesn't last forever. These are the years where he could be setting rookie benchmarks, creating explosive highlights, becoming a long-term weapon defenses fear. Instead, he's playing cleanup for a line that barely holds together under basic pressure. It's wasted potential in real time. His stats might not tell the full story, but his wear and tear will. And that's the trap no one wants to admit. Dysfunction like this doesn't just stall momentum, it warps it. You stop seeing players grow. You start seeing players adapt downward. Not because they lack the drive, but because their ceiling gets lowered by the system surrounding them. Not in ability, but in rhythm, in belief, in emotional investment. The worst part, they're not outwardly complaining. They're not acting out. They're still showing up, still pushing, still performing even now. And if you think that means the damage isn't happening, you're not paying attention, because silence doesn't mean safety. In the NFL, it often means resignation. You can only put your body on the line so many times for a system that gives you nothing back before you start to shut off. Just a little, a half step slower, a little less fire in the celebrations, a few more flat post-game interviews. That's how the slow fade begins. And when that fire dims for good, you don't get it back with a mid-season motivational speech. Sanders had a future written in ink. Now we're seeing it rewritten in pencil. The wrong habits seeping in, the trust fading. The rhythm stalling. The ability is still there, that's what makes this worse. Everyone knows exactly what he's capable of if this structure simply stops derailing him. That's what makes it feel like a tragedy instead of just underperformance. And Judkins, he's already showing signs of manufactured instincts. He's not reading plays, he's rejecting them before they even unfold. Not because he's freelancing, but because he's forced to. That's not freedom, that's survival. And you can't build an elite runner inside a system that keeps teaching him the worst-case scenario is always coming. The scariest part? There's no indication the staff sees this as urgent. Stefanski keeps going with the same explanations, one recycled phrase after another. We're close. We're learning. We're building. No, they're regressing. They're bleeding out talent cues, blowing confidence mid-drive, crumbling at the snap. This isn't a tough stretch. It's an exposed engine overheating every time it's pushed. And if someone in power, above Stefanski, inside the front office, doesn't sound the alarm soon, what's happening now will be the irreversible tipping point. Not just for this season, for the era. Because this is what collapse looks like before the stars walk. First, it's shortened answers in media sessions. Then it's strained body language. Then it's ghosting off-season workouts. Then it's the quiet trade request. The need to reset somewhere else. And once that process starts, it doesn't matter how much potential remains on the roster, it's already too late. The Browns can still change this. They still have the pieces. But pretending there's time left, that's the real mistake. There's no 5-year plan anymore. There's no luxury to just see where things go. You don't get to waste a quarterback like this and expect a second chance. You don't wear down a running back in year 1 and hope he sticks around emotionally invested in year 3. That's not how it works anymore. The window's open right now, but crack it much longer and the wind will rip through and slam it shut. Permanently. The team still has the core, talent, grit, heart, but the people responsible for designing the blueprint, right now they're repainting the walls while the foundation splits underneath. Turn around the structure. Change the expectations. Protect what matters now or lose it forever. You can see it clearly now. This isn't a bad game, or a rough stretch, or an unlucky skid. This is a disaster unfolding in slow motion, and no one at the top is pulling the alarm. The Browns have Shedeur Sanders and Quinshon Judkins, two future stars, two players who should be defining this team's new identity. But instead of being elevated, they're being exposed. Not by the defense, not by their own performance, but by the very system that's supposed to protect them. And the damage is stacking fast. Every busted protection, every late adjustment, every meaningless rotation up front is another tick on a clock no one's watching. This isn't development anymore, it's danger. It's negligence dressed up as strategy. It's whispered phrases about getting better while the foundation splits wide open right beneath these players' feet. Shadur came here to lead a team, to change a narrative, to light up stadiums. But all he's gotten is pain. Pressure that never lets up. Schemes that don't adapt. Teammates who are just as lost as he is when the pocket caves in before the play even starts. You don't build a quarterback like this, you break one. And Judkins, he's doing everything right. He's putting his body on the line, fighting for yards that shouldn't even be possible. And still, he's stuck in survival mode, turning miracle plays into quiet, wasted drives. Not because he lacks the skill, but because the players supposed to clear the way for him are spinning in circles, assignments missed, accountability absent. Stefanski's message has been the same every week. We'll clean it up. But there's no more to clean. The mess can't be mopped. The offense isn't dirty, it's collapsed. The line doesn't need tweaking. It needs rebuilding. And the culture, it needs a reckoning. Because the worst-case scenario isn't just another losing season. It's Judkins and Sanders walking off this field with their heads down, week after week, until they stop caring. Until the damage you've done to their growth becomes permanent. Until the spark that made them so special dims for good. This team has seen talent walk before. Cleveland's been here, the potential, the hype, the flashes of greatness that vanish the second it's time to protect them, and still, somehow, they let it happen again. New faces, same pattern, but this time, the cost is steeper. Judkins is the kind of running back that changes game flow. He doesn't just get yards when he's blocked well, he gets them when he's not. He turns losses into gains, and most of the time, he's doing it while being set up to fail. And Sanders, he's still commanding the huddle, still throwing on the run, still bouncing back after hits that would have sidelined other quarterbacks. But for how long? How many years can you ask a young QB to trust a wall that can't hold? Talent like this can't be left in the wreckage, not when they've shown the fight, not when they've taken the hits, not when they've done everything right, only to be failed by a system that refuses to grow with them. This franchise isn't out of time, not yet, but they're out of excuses. It's no longer about rotating linemen or simplifying calls or reviewing film. It's about owning the failure and making changes that hurt in the short term but save the season, maybe even the future. Because if this keeps going, if the coaching staff keeps pretending everything's close, if they keep gaslighting fans and players with promises instead of results, this won't just be a wasted season. It'll be erased potential. The names won't matter down the line. The stats will fade. All that'll be left is the question every fan will ask for years. Could they have been something great if anyone had just stepped in and done something? This is bigger than football. It's about how an organization handles adversity, how they treat rising stars, how they answer complete and total breakdowns. If Cleveland wants to be seen as a franchise that finally gets it, this is the moment. Right here, not next month, not after another 4 losses. Right now, tear down what's broken. Bench whoever won't protect the future. Fire whoever keeps pretending it's all fine. Surround your stars with structure, leadership, and a damn plan, because players like Judkins and Sanders, they don't sit around forever waiting to be saved. They find a new team, a new system, a new story, and if that happens, the Browns won't just be rebuilding. They'll be rebuilding from scratch once again, wondering how they managed to fumble the one shot they actually had. So if you're watching this thinking, yeah, it can't possibly be that serious. It is. The film doesn't lie. The silence from the players says enough. The scoreboard is just a formality at this point. You want to fix this? Start by admitting how deep the problem goes. Because talent without trust, that's just wasted ink on a roster card. And if Cleveland keeps letting their young stars take the hits, absorb the blame, and carry the burden of a failing system, the story won't end with progress. It'll end with regret. So let's open it up, drop your thoughts in the comments. Tell me if you still believe in these coaches, or if it's time to make the hard calls ownership keeps avoiding. If you know another fan who's been watching this mess unfold week after week, send them this. Let them know they're not crazy. And if you're riding with Judkins and Sanders, hit that subscribe button. We've got more to say. Because this story isn't over, but if they don't act soon, it might be too late.